Necessity isn't always the mother of invention. Sometimes it's just pure luck. Hey viewers, welcome back to Curiosity. When we hear about famous scientific breakthroughs, we assume that the brilliant minds behind them knew exactly what they were doing. But that isn't always the case. Throughout history, many major discoveries came accidentally, and in today's video, we will tell you about the ones that changed the world. We're talking chocolate chip cookies, microwaves, Coca-Cola, cornflakes, potato chips, and more. Watch until the end to learn about all of them. Number 1. Chocolate chip cookies. It's hard to imagine a world without chocolate chip cookies. But this famous treat wasn't actually invented until 1930. On the day that the cookies were created, Ruth Graves Wakefield, co-owner of the Toll House Inn, was preparing some chocolate cookies for her guests when she realized that she was out of baker's chocolate. Thinking on her feet, Wakefield decided to chop up a block of Nestle semi-sweet chocolate, assuming it would melt and spread evenly throughout the batter. Instead, what came out of the oven was the very first batch of chocolate chip cookies, and modern dessert was never the same again. What's your favorite cookie flavor? Tell us quickly down below in the comment section. Number 2. Vulcanized rubber. Charles Goodyear was looking for ways to make rubber easier to work with and more resistant to heat and cold. One day, while turning the lights off, he spilled a mixture of rubber, sulfur, and lead onto a hot stove. The mixture was charred, but was not completely ruined. Goodyear noticed that the mixture had hardened and become quite usable. He used a technique now known as vulcanization to fortify the strength of rubber. Today, vulcanized rubber is used in the tires of cars, sports shoes, and many other important things. Number 3. Fireworks. All those fireworks you see in the sky were discovered by a Chinese cook somewhere around 2,000 years ago. We really don't know what he was trying to invent, but at some point he accidentally mixed together common kitchen items like charcoal, sulfur, and saltpeter, compressing them into a bamboo tube. When this concoction was brought near the flames, it exploded into what we now know as fireworks. Number 4. Teflon. The first generation of refrigerators used ammonia or sulfur dioxide as refrigerants. In 1938, when Roy Plunkett, a scientist with DuPont, was working on ways to synthesize new refrigerants, he noticed that one of his containers of experimental gas had solidified and turned into a slick surface. It turned out to be resistant to extreme heat and chemicals, as well as effective as a lubricant. The product was trademarked as Teflon in 1945. While it was first used in the military, we nowadays find it in our kitchens, on our frying pans. Interested yet? Make sure you join our millions of followers and hit that subscribe button for all our great curiosity content. Number 5. Microwave. Percy Spencer was testing a magnetron. This was a vacuum tube that produced microwaves. This is when he noticed the chocolate bar in his pocket had melted. Spencer soon figured out that food exposed to the microwaves heated up quickly. His employer, Raytheon, filed a patent on the use of microwaves for cooking food in 1945. This is where the microwave was born. However, the first models were bulky, heavy, and expensive, and it wasn't until the late 1960s that regular people were using them in their homes. These models were much smaller and could be placed in our kitchens. Number 6. Velcro. George de Mestral, a Swiss engineer, observed how cockleburs, a rough weed, had the ability to stick to his clothes as well as his dog's fur. When analyzing the plant under a microscope, he saw heaps of tiny hooks that easily attached to the small loops found in clothing fibers, animal furs, or human hair. De Mestral decided to try to recreate a fabric fastener acting like the cockleburs. It led to the invention of Velcro, a combination of the words velvet and crochet. In 1955, but it wasn't until NASA started to use Velcro during the Apollo missions in the 60s that its success took off. A couple of years later, the first sneakers were equipped with Velcro rather than laces. This relieved young children who couldn't yet tie their own shoes. Number 7. Coca-Cola. This world-famous soft drink was invented in 1866 by American pharmacist John Sith Pemberton. A year before that, Pemberton was wounded during the Battle of Columbus and became addicted to morphine as a result. This addiction led him to research opium-free painkillers that could cure his addiction. He ended up creating a syrup recipe out of cocoa leaves and coca wines. He named it Pemberton's French wine Coca. A year later, due to prohibition, a non-alcoholic version of French coca wine was introduced. This is what we call Coca-Cola today. Number 8. Vaseline. Vaseline was discovered in 1859 when Robert Cheeseborough visited an oil field and saw that workers were complaining about rod wax. This was an annoying waxy substance that had to continuously be removed from pumps because it was clogging them up. When he learned that workers had been using it to treat cuts and burns, he started looking into it further. He then spent over a decade perfecting his extraction and purification process before introducing the jelly to the world. He called it Vaseline. Number 9. Matches. Creating a controlled flame feels like something we've been able to do forever, but this form of flame control was invented by John Walker. In 1826, the British pharmacist noticed a dried lump on the end of a stick while he was stirring a mix of chemicals. When he tried to scrape it off, sparks were produced and flame was created. Walker marketed the first matches as friction lights and sold them at his pharmacy. They were first made of cardboard, but he soon replaced them with 3-inch long hand-cut wooden splints. Number 10. Post-it notes. If you've ever relied on these colourful sticky notes, you have 3M employee Arthur Fry to thank. In 1968, an employee was trying to develop a strong adhesive. This is something that holds materials together. Instead, he accidentally created a weaker one. Not knowing what to do with it, he abandoned the project. It wasn't until 6 years later, when Fry needed something to attach bookmarks to his church book, that the idea for Post-its was born. While the company was initially skeptical about the product's use, they were launched in 1980 and are now sold in more than 100 countries. Number 11. Potato chips. Another world-famous treat, potato chips were invented after a restaurant customer kept sending fried potatoes back for not being crunchy enough. Finally fed up, New England chef George Crumb is said to have sliced the potatoes so thin that the customer ideally wouldn't be able to eat them. To George's surprise, the customer loved the deep-fried chips and asked for a second serving. Originally called Saratoga chips, they became so popular that they were soon produced for the masses. Number 12. Chewing gum. While variations of chewing gum have been around since ancient Greece, the gum that we know today wasn't invented until the late 1800s. It was then that an American inventor named Thomas Adams Sr. stumbled upon this chewy treat, but only after first trying and failing to turn chicle, the substance gum is made out of, into rubber. Number 13. Dry cleaning. Although the inventor of dry cleaning, Jean-Baptiste Joly, worked in the clothing industry as a textile maker, his discovery of this revolutionary cleaning method was completely by accident. It happened when his maid mistakenly knocked a kerosene lamp onto a tablecloth. Joly observed that the kerosene actually made the cloth cleaner. This spawned his idea for the very first dry cleaner. Number 14. X-ray. This happened in 1895. While working on a cathode ray tube, German physicist Wilhelm Röntgen noticed something strange was happening. Despite the tube being covered, he saw a nearby fluorescent screen glow when the tube was on and the room was darkened. He tried to block the invisible rays, but most things had no effect. When he tried using his hand, he noticed he could see his bones in an image projected on screen. Amazed, he replaced the screen with a photographic plate, and the first ever X-ray was created. Number 15. Duct tape. It's not like there wasn't already tape in the world before this material was invented in World War II, but very few other kinds held on as tightly and for as long as duct tape. It was initially created by researchers at Johnson & Johnson to help the military protect their ammunition cases from harsh conditions on the front lines. After the soldiers came home, many of them got jobs in construction. They recommended some rolls of their hard-working tape to heating and air conditioning contractors to hold ventilation ducts together. This is where duct tape came into common use. Number 16. Paperclip. Back in the late 1800s, a man named Samuel Fay was looking for a way to attach tickets to fabric. He obviously couldn't use pins because they'd pierce the fabric, so in a moment of inspiration, he spotted a piece of wire nearby that bent into the shape of an X and slid the ticket and the fabric right into the middle. Voila! The earliest version of the paperclip was born. Number 17. Cornflakes. The recipe for cornflakes came out of a botched attempt to cook wheat in 1894. At that time, John Kellogg was the medical superintendent at Battle Creek Sanitarium, a health facility. John and his brother William, who also worked at the sanitarium, were trying to come up with a diet for the patients there. One day, the brothers put some wheat on to boil, but they accidentally left it cooking too long. When they finally took it off the stove and tried to roll it out into dough, the wheat separated into flakes. The brothers discovered they could bake these into a crispy snack. After some experimentation, they found that the same effect could be achieved using corn instead of wheat, and the recipe for cornflakes was invented. While these discoveries changed the world, there are others that did not have a positive impact on society. Learn more about these by watching The Most Brutal Historical Punishment Techniques or How to Survive a Nuclear Attack. Which of these discoveries do you appreciate the most? Let us know in the comments section below.